Hello and welcome to Kit's Photography for this time. This is the second episode in our 5-part series on Kangaroo Island. So let's begin. Hello and welcome to Kit's Photography. I'm Kit from Bremac Photography here in sunny South Australia. Welcome to my channel. So this episode is going to be dedicated to 2 parts of Kangaroo Island. The first one is going to be Kingscote and the Jetty, where I get to go and photograph some amazing wildlife and show you where you can get those great shots, as well as some abstract things and just looking at the general area there. Kingscote is the largest of all the towns in Kangaroo Island and is essentially the capital city of the area. The second part is very exciting because I get to go and talk to Jon Lark. He's the owner of Kangaroo Island Spirits, which won the best gin in the world a few years ago. Wonderful achievement for South Australia. And you can't really go to Kangaroo Island Spirits without having a try. There's always lots to do around Kingscote, but especially things like this. It's not too far, it's about 5 to 10 minutes out of Kingscote, and it is a really, really good place to try some gin. So this area behind me here is the old ferry terminal, which shut down quite some time ago, and now Sealink goes from Pennyshore rather than Kingscote. Kingscote obviously is the capital city of Kangaroo Island. It's much larger, and you can see this ferry terminal behind here is absolutely massive. The ferries that used to come here were absolutely huge, and the sister terminal is over at Port Adelaide, and the remains of it are still there as well. From the jetty here is truly remarkable. It's just beautiful. This is actually the other side of Kangaroo Island behind me over here. The mainland is over that way, which you can see in the distance that way as well. But the weather here is absolutely beautiful. If you live in South Australia under restrictions, you can come to Kangaroo Island now. It's truly lovely, and the water is just crystal clear. The air is absolutely clean. And the last time I was here was actually when the fires were happening on Kangaroo Island, and they got hit really hard. But it was a time when the whole community came together and they did overcome. Unfortunately, there were some people who passed away, but it's still, they're remembered. And things have changed quite a bit since then. But today is just truly lovely. The weather's about 20 degrees. It's beautiful sky, supposed to be pouring rain, but isn't. And I just can't get over how clear the water is. It's absolutely lovely. So let's enjoy some Kangaroo Island. So I'm still in Kingscote right now. The jetty is just over there. The mainland's behind me over there. But directly behind me are a large number of seals who are basking in the sun. Now this area here is actually cordoned off to the public, which allows the seals to have a rest. And that's something that's so important because you're always going to find people around here. Now this whole area is great for photography because there are so many different things to photograph. There are cormorants, there are shags over there, and there are seals, and you don't get to see seals like this very often. Now I wouldn't say swim in the water because obviously when you see seals there are sharks, because sharks, their favourite food is a nice juicy fat seal. But you know, this area is just lovely. The weather here is amazing. It's just a photographer's dream. I say to everybody, come down to Kangaroo Island, catch a ferry across, drive across, whatever you need to do, and come and have a look. jetties are great places to photograph because there are so many interesting things that you can look at. So many different shapes, so many different shadows, movement. So depending on really what you want to do, you can put a neutral density filter on and you can get all the water moving around and make it so it looks like it's fog or ice. Or you can get great shadows and shapes. So under the jetty here, you can see lots of crisscross shapes and things like that. Makes for great abstract photographs. Jetties always make great abstract photographs because of all the different angles and shapes. As always, black and white brings out all the emotion in the photograph. Now we're off to Kangaroo Island Spirits, where you can, believe it or not, try a world-class gin, because they actually won the world's best gin a couple of years ago. It's a great place to try some spirits, sit back and relax, and enjoy the view, even around an open fire. But without further ado, here is Jon Lark. So I'm here right now at the Kangaroo Island Spirits Distillery.
Yep.
With Jon.
Yep.
And this is your distillery.
It is, yeah.
So essentially, what do you do here? What are you making?
Look, we started out 15 years ago to make gin,
yes,
traditionally, and at the time there was no other gin distilleries in Australia specifically set up to make gin.
Yes.
There were a few whiskey distilleries. Mm-hmm. My brother having one of them in Tasmania, and we talked to him about why they didn't make proper gin, and he said, yep, to me at the time, way back in 2002, that gin will never do anything and we should make whiskey. Well, we didn't think that was the case, so we came over here and started to make gin.
Yes.
So we have 6 or 7 gins that we're producing regularly. Some smaller ones that we do on a seasonal basis or bespoke gins. And that's really what we specialise in.
Yep.
We do have some liqueurs and vodkas, and more recently we've started making a little whiskey.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Now, for those people who don't know, gin is a very general term. Is that right? Would you argue it is that, or is it more narrowed in as time has progressed?
Well, when we started, we had to explain to people what craft gin was.
Yep.
And at the time, a lot of gins, you know, something like Vickers was made, still is made, by bringing a concentrate out from England and batching it in a shed with pure alcohol.
Yep.
It's not really much craft or artisan work in that. But traditionally, gin is a drink that gets its name from the Dutch or French word Geneva, and so it's defined as a white spirit predominantly flavoured by juniper. Since we set out on our gin journey, the world has changed for gin, and now gin has very much broadened in its styles and its expressions. So there are all sorts of expressions, but predominantly a white spirit, mainly flavoured with juniper. And
you've won some international awards for your
quite a few.
Gin. Yep. What would you say is the best gin that you make out of all the ones that you've won awards with?
The one that we like and the most successful as a classic dry or contemporary dry is our O gin, which is flavoured with coastal rosemary bush.
Oh.
It took home it won a trophy for contemporary, world's best contemporary gin at the International Wine and Spirits competition, a competition with 50 years history, and the only time an Australian gin has ever taken a trophy out in that competition.
Fantastic. See, South Australians can do really good things.
And more recently this year, that was 12 months ago, in the same competition, our wild and O gins both scored higher than any other Australian gin, and in the same week they did the same in a Californian event called the SIP Awards, judged by consumers. So we're still cutting well above our kind of our size or place, but we're still up there.
Of course.
But we have aged gins as well, and probably my favourite gin at the moment is the gin that we experimented with earlier on by aging one of our dry gins in some old whiskey barrels.
Oh.
And so a whiskey barrel aged gin is my favourite to sip on. Simply neat, perhaps around a fire with a bit of citrus peel.
And aging it in a whiskey barrel, what does it actually do to the flavour compared to something that's just made?
It changes the colour for a start, so it has a golden hue to it. It adds elements from the wood, so we're getting some vanilla, and then we're getting some hints at the end of it of what's been in there before. So these barrels were Australian whiskey barrels that started out as Pedro Ximénez sherry barrels from Spain. So some of that hints towards that in the end, and you end up with a buttery, creamy, slight whiskey finish.
Fantastic, fantastic. So behind us here, you're collecting gin.
We're producing gin.
You're producing gin. So talk me through the process. What actually happens?
Okay, we believe to make a good gin that you start with a very high premium neutral spirit, and you can never make something in a still like this from a fermentable. So we buy it in. Simply because when we make gin, we want the botanicals that we put in the gin to be the hero. We don't want to be able to taste where the spirit comes from. So we have a very good grape-based spirit from the Barossa Valley that is ultra premium, specifically designed to make things like gin. We place it in the large pot, and then in the chamber up here, some people call it a carter head, we have a stainless steel basket, and we put all the botanicals into that basket, and they're pre-soaked and roasted and ground to a specific mix and a specific recipe. And then when the alcohol reaches temperature, it passes up the neck as a steam, it comes down the side and then gets pushed through the basket and extracts the essential oil that way, taking with it the vapor and the oil through a condenser which cools it back down and delivers it here to the collection vessel.
That's amazing. So is this is your main distillers here? One of the things that a lot of people picture is something that's absolutely massive, like a brewery.
Yeah, that's correct, because they're thinking about all the pictures they've seen of whiskey distilleries in Scotland. And if you think about that, you're loading that still with essentially something akin to beer, which might be 8 or 9% in alcohol, maybe a bit more, but not very much. So if you're putting 10,000 litres in, you're only going to get 600 litres, whatever you're going to get out, not very much in actual spirit. But because we start with 96% spirit, alcohol by volume, we can still get 300 or 400 bottles out of this little still per run.
Fantastic. Wow, that's a lot of alcohol. Yeah,
fantastic. It comes out at 86% and then we bring it back to bottling strength.
Fantastic. Do you ever make anything which is 86%?
Not for sale, no.
Not for sale?
No. We have made a little bit of what we call like a Navy strength or a merchant seaman's gin, because there's been a bit of interest in it, but it's more of a novelty. Back in the days when they had rum and gin in barrels under ships, they used a term called proof, and that was all about determining the strength of the alcohol, because if the alcohol was below 58% ABV and it spilt on your gunpowder, the gunpowder wouldn't ignite. So the spirits had to be above 58%, and somebody had a job of burning some gunpowder on the wharf before they loaded the barrels, tipping the spirit on, and if it didn't go out, then it was proved to be correct. And so that's where Navy strength gin comes from.
That's pretty strong.
But you just have less of it, so we don't tend to make anything of that sort of strength.
Look, that's absolutely wonderful. Jon, thank you so much for your time today.
No worries, great.
It's been a pleasure.
Good.
While you're at the distillery, it's a really great place to grab some photographs of what you're drinking. Changing it to black and white really makes a difference, but the original is also really, really nice too. The contrast between the table, the glasses and the ingredients looks great. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this second Kangaroo Island special episode. Don't forget to try and support the people on Kangaroo Island. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It's really important. At the filming of this, I've got 99 subscribers, nearly 100. This is fantastic, guys. Keep up the good work. Now, next time, I'll be taking a photograph of the Milky Way and doing a tutorial on how to do it. I know I've done that before, but this time it's how to take it out in the middle of nowhere where there's no light pollution at all. And what this means is you can use a really short shutter speed and get an excellent photograph. I'm also going to do an experiment to see whether I can take a photograph of the Milky Way with my iPhone 11 Pro Max. Now you have to stick with it because there is actually a moment when we hear a really scary noise, and my cameraman ran over to see what it was, and I picked up the camera and followed after him. It turned out to be a koala, but you'll have to have a look. Koalas can actually be really, really scary at night, especially when it's absolutely pitch black and you can't see anything. So thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all the people who've subscribed so far, and I'll see you next time.